Not on the list, bro. VIP only. The bouncer's hand slammed against the man's chest, shoving him back from the velvet rope. The crowd at the upscale nightclub's entrance fell silent. He had no idea the casually dressed black man he just humiliated was the club's owner, and a former Marine who didn't take disrespect lightly. This wasn't just a bad night. It was a documented case of velvet rope racism, a systematic practice where clubs use dress codes and fake lists to exclude black patrons. The owner, Marcus Thorne, built this club to be different. So why did his own security turn him away? And what happens when a former Marine decides to reclaim his territory, not with a fight, but with a business card and a lawyer? Marcus Thorne didn't build a nightclub to get rich. After 2 tours overseas, he used his savings to open the Vault in a forgotten part of the city, a place where everyone, regardless of background, could feel safe and respected. His business partner, a sharp corporate attorney named David Chen, handled the legalities. But Marcus hired an old friend, Jason Miller, to manage the daily operations. And that was the first mistake. Jason saw the club not as a community hub, but as a profit engine. He watched clubs in the trendy districts make bank by cultivating an exclusive moneyed vibe. He started pressuring Marcus. "We need a stricter door policy," he'd argue. "We need to be selective to attract a higher-end clientele." Marcus always refused. The written policy was clear: no discrimination. Dress code was smart casual, applied equally to everyone. But Jason began working around Marcus. He hired a new head of security, a bulldog of a man named Mike Riker, who had a reputation for cleaning up clientele at his last job. Marcus was busy securing a liquor license expansion and trusted Jason's judgment. He didn't see the training memo Jason gave Mike. It included phrases like managing crowd composition and preserving atmosphere, with pointed examples of what types of patrons might disrupt the equilibrium. The system was now in place. A manager with a different vision and a bouncer empowered to enact it. For weeks, it worked as designed for Jason. The crowd became wider, more affluent. The bottle service revenue doubled. Jason presented the numbers to Marcus as a pure success story. But then, the complaints started trickling in. A young black professional named Liam was turned away for athletic wear, while a white patron in nearly identical clothes was waved inside. A group of Latina women were told their names weren't on a private list that didn't exist. Marcus caught wind of these stories and confronted Jason, who had a ready answer every time. Dress code violation, clear as day. Or, they were belligerent, Mike had no choice. Marcus's military instincts tingled, something was off. But without proof, it was his word against his manager. Then came the night Marcus decided to do a spot check. He'd been working late on the books and threw on a simple black tee and jeans. He didn't announce himself. He just walked up to his own club like any other customer. He saw Mike Riker in action, turning away a pair of black men with a sneer and the now familiar lie: "VIP only tonight, guys. Not on the list." That's when Marcus stepped forward, and that's when Mike's hand hit his chest. The shove wasn't just physical, it was a violation of everything Marcus had built. The crowd's silence was deafening. Marcus didn't say a word. He just locked eyes with Mike, turned, and melted back into the city night. The bouncer had no idea he just ignited a tactical response. Marcus didn't go home. He went to his office above a nearby garage, the club's original planning space. He pulled every file: the employee handbook, Jason's performance reviews, the security contracts. And then he found it, buried in operational expenses from last month. A receipt from a local print shop, authorized by Jason, for 500 VIP guest list placards. The club had never used a formal guest list. He called David Chen, his partner. "We have a terminal problem at the Vault." Then he called the club's corporate attorney, Sophia Reyes. "Meet me at the club tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bring termination paperwork." The next morning, Jason Miller arrived early, confident. He was preparing a report on another record-breaking weekend. Mike Riker was at his post, bragging to a junior bouncer about keeping the riffraff out. They were both completely unaware that the owner they'd excluded was now marching toward the entrance with two of the sharpest legal minds in the city, ready to dismantle their entire operation with the cold precision of a military audit. The trio didn't use the main entrance. Marcus led them through a discreet service door near the dumpsters, a path used for deliveries and known only to a few. They emerged into the stark fluorescent light of the back hallway. The thump of the club's sound system was a dull pulse through the walls. They found Jason Miller in his glass-walled office, sipping coffee and reviewing a spreadsheet. Jason's smile froze when he saw Marcus, then widened nervously at the sight of David and Sophia. "Marcus, David, to what do I owe the surprise board meeting?" His eyes darted to the folders in David's hand. Marcus didn't sit. He placed the print shop receipt on the desk. 500 VIP placards, Jason. We don't have a VIP list. Explain. The color drained from Jason's face. He stammered it was a marketing idea for future promotions. A marketing idea you used to turn away paying customers for the last 6 weeks, David Chin stated flatly, opening his folder. We have 17 logged complaints, all from people of color, all given the same excuse, not on the list. Jason shifted to defense. Those are baseless allegations. Door staff have discretion. Mike Riker is just being diligent. Mike Riker assaulted the owner of this establishment last night, Sophia Reyes said, her voice like cut glass. We have multiple witness statements from the crowd being gathered as we speak. Your diligent employee put his hands on a decorated Marine and principal owner. That's battery, and you are vicariously liable. The word liable seemed to physically shrink Jason in his chair. Marcus finally spoke, his voice low and controlled. You're terminated, effective immediately. Clean out your desk. Security will escort you out. Jason's arrogance shattered. Marcus, come on, we go back years. I made this place money. You corrupted its soul, Marcus replied, turning away. Get out. But the audit was just beginning. With Jason paralyzed in his office under David's watch, Marcus and Sophia moved to the front. Mike Riker was holding court at the Velvet Rope, regaling two new hires with a story about handling a difficult situation last night. He didn't see Marcus approach from his blind side. Mike, the bouncer turned, his smirk dissolving into confusion, then a flicker of fear. He recognized the man from the night before, but now he was flanked by a severe-looking woman in a suit. You need to leave. This is a private area. I own this private area, Marcus said, his military bearing making him seem to tower over the larger man. You are fired for gross misconduct and assault. Mike puffed out his chest. You can't fire me. I was doing my job, Jason said. Jason Miller has also been terminated, Sophia interjected, handing him a folded letter. This outlines the cause. It also informs you that Mr. Thorne is pressing criminal charges for battery. The security footage from last night has already been subpoenaed. The defiance in Mike's eyes melted into panic. The junior bouncers took a step back. It was a mistake, Mike blurted. I didn't know. Your ignorance of who owns the club isn't a defense, Sophia said. Your pattern of discrimination is. Now please surrender your keys and lanyard and exit the premises. As a shell-shocked Mike Riker was walked out by the very junior staff he'd been training, Marcus and Sophia headed to the security office. They needed the footage, the logs, the full picture. The club's head of IT, a young woman named Chloe who reported directly to corporate, was already there, her face pale. Mr. Thorne, I pulled everything from last night like you asked, but I also looked back further. You should see this. She brought up a file on the monitor. It wasn't just video. It was a digital ledger, a log of door incidents maintained by Mike. Entries were brief, coded. Group of 3 black males, attire subpar, advised list full. 2 Latina females, IDs questioned, turned away. Chloe scrolled. There are hundreds of these, going back months. Sophia leaned in. Is this an official log? No, Chloe whispered. It's a personal file he kept on a hidden drive on the security server. I found it because he logged in from the wrong profile, but look at the dates and times. I cross-referenced with the official POS system. She opened another window showing transaction timestamps. On nights with high incidents logged here, the bottle service revenue spiked, specifically revenue from the new clientele in sections 1 and 2. The pieces locked together with a chilling click. It wasn't just prejudice, it was a profit model. Exclude certain groups, create an artificially exclusive atmosphere, and charge a premium to those who got in. Jason's record-breaking numbers had a source. Marcus felt a cold fury. Who else knew? Chloe hesitated. The other senior bouncers, maybe some bartenders in those sections. It was an open secret among parts of the staff. People who tried to complain to Jason were given worse shifts or had their hours cut. She pulled up an old email from a server backup. It was from a bartender named Leo, sent to Jason 8 months prior, expressing concern about the door policy being selective in a bad way. Jason's reply was terse. Focus on your pores. Door policy is management's concern. They had the evidence. A systematic manager-sanctioned campaign of discrimination documented in cold data. But as they were absorbing this, David Chen walked in, his phone to his ear, his expression grim. He covered the mic. We have another problem. Jason didn't go home. He went straight to a lawyer, and he's not going down alone. He's claiming you created a hostile work environment, Marcus. He's alleging financial mismanagement. He's threatening to go public with a very different story. The narrative was about to be weaponized. Jason Miller, the scorned manager, painting himself as a whistleblower against a volatile, unprofessional owner. In the court of public opinion, facts could get buried fast. Marcus looked at the damning data on the screen, then at his partners. The mission had just changed. It was no longer about cleaning house. It was about winning a war for the truth before a lie spread so far that the real story could never be heard. Jason Miller's lawsuit hit the local courthouse before the end of the business day. The filing was a masterclass in deflection. It portrayed Marcus as a reckless, absentee owner, prone to outbursts, who had created a toxic culture Jason had bravely tried to manage. It made no mention of VIP placards or door logs. The narrative was set: a disgruntled founder versus a professional manager trying to save a business. Sophia Reyes was ready. She filed a counterclaim before the sun set, alleging fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and intentional infliction of emotional distress on behalf of the discriminated patrons. She attached the print shop receipt, excerpts from Mike Riker's hidden log, and the first 10 witness affidavits. It was a legal thunderclap meant to drown out Jason's noise. But the battlefield wasn't just the courthouse. It was the media. A local gossip blog ran with Jason's version first. Trouble at the vault. Owner ousts longtime manager amid meltdown rumors. The comments section filled with speculation about Marcus's fitness to run a business. The story had the seductive sheen of a classic downfall tale. Marcus, David, and Sophia convened an emergency war council at David's law firm. We need to get ahead of this, David said, packing. We have the truth, but truth is slow. Lies are fast. Their strategy was three-pronged: legal assault, public relations offense, and internal consolidation. First, internal consolidation. Marcus called an all-staff meeting for that evening. The club was closed, the dance floor empty under the haunting glow of emergency lights. He stood before the bartenders, servers, security, and cleaners. He didn't give a speech. He showed them the evidence. He projected Mike Riker's log entries on a screen. He read Jason's email shutting down the concerned bartender. This is what was happening at our door, Marcus said, his voice echoing in the hollow space. This is the opposite of what I built. If you participated in this, your resignation will be accepted immediately. If you knew and said nothing, we need to talk. If you want to help fix this, stay. The choice is yours. It was a brutal, transparent gambit. By the end of the night, 3 senior bouncers linked to Mike resigned. But more importantly, a dozen staff members, including Chloe from IT and Leo, the bartender who'd complained, stepped forward. They had stories, screenshots of group chats, and rumors of cash bonuses paid to door staff on nights with high selectivity. The conspiracy had roots. The second front was public relations. Sophia had a contact at the city's major newspaper, an investigative reporter named Anya Petrova who had written about housing discrimination. They gave her an exclusive, but not on the lawsuit, on the data. Anya spent 2 days with Chloe analyzing the logs. Her article, published online at 5 p.m. on a Thursday, was titled Algorithm of Exclusion: How One Club's Door Data Reveals a Pattern of Racial Profiling. It was devastatingly clinical. Charts compared incident logs against demographic data of the neighborhood. Quotes from sociology experts labeled it a textbook case of velvet rope racism. It mentioned Jason and Mike by name and included a statement from Marcus. "I serve to protect people's rights. To find this corruption under my own roof is the deepest failure. It ends today." Public opinion flipped overnight. The narrative was no longer about a messy management dispute. It was about systemic discrimination. Former patrons who'd been turned away began speaking to other news outlets. A local civil rights group announced it was monitoring the situation. But just as the tide seemed to turn, the third and most dangerous front erupted. Jason's lawyer, a slick litigator named Carson Holt, held a press conference. He didn't argue about discrimination, he pivoted. "My client is a victim of a smear campaign to cover up financial crimes," Holt announced, holding up a stack of bank statements. "Marcus Thorne has been funneling club revenue into personal accounts. He's insolvent. The discrimination tale is a diversion." They were falsified documents, but they were convincing at a glance. The media, always hungry for a twist, pounced. Club scandal deepens. Embezzlement allegations surface. The story was now a confusing tangle of he said, she said. The clear-cut case of discrimination was suddenly murky. David Chen, the numbers guy, dove into the forensic accounting. It took him a weekend, but he traced every transaction. The funneled funds were legitimate business expenses: a liquor license bond, a sound system upgrade, lease payments. But proving it would take time in court, time during which the club's reputation would bleed out. Then Chloe made another discovery. While digging through old server backups, she found archived text messages from Jason's company phone. They were between Jason and an unknown number discussing door strategy and client demographics. But one exchange from nearly a year ago was chilling. The unknown number wrote, "Our model works because we're consistent. Keep the profile high, the spend higher. The playbook doesn't fail." Jason replied, "Understood, applying the playbook here. Thorne is clueless." Marcus stared at the word. The playbook. It wasn't just Jason's initiative. It was a borrowed system. Sophia immediately filed a discovery motion demanding Jason reveal all communications with this number and explain what the playbook was. The demand triggered a nuclear response. Carson Holt, Jason's lawyer, filed a motion to seal the entire case, citing trade secrets. His client, he argued, had proprietary business knowledge that was being harassed. It was a delaying tactic, but a sophisticated one. The judge, intrigued by the sudden secrecy claim, scheduled a closed-door hearing. In that hearing, Holt finally revealed the truth. The unknown number belonged to a consulting firm called Echelon Hospitality. They specialized in venue profit optimization. And the playbook was their confidential manual for using demographic targeting and perceived exclusivity to maximize per-customer revenue. Jason was a disciple. The vault was a test case. This was the wait, it gets worse moment. The discrimination wasn't an accident or even just one manager's prejudice. It was a pre-packaged, profit-driven business strategy sold to nightclubs. Jason hadn't invented the wheel, he just paid for the blueprint. The judge, horrified, denied the motion to seal. The name Echelon Hospitality in the playbook became public, and with that, the scandal exploded beyond the vault. Reporters found other clubs in other cities that had used Echelon services. A national story was born. Marcus Thorne was no longer just fighting for his club's soul. He was holding a match that could ignite an industry-wide reckoning. The depositions, the media circus, the legal trench warfare, it was all leading to one moment. The moment he would have to sit across from Jason Miller and the shadowy representatives of Echelon Hospitality in a public courtroom and dismantle their entire playbook line by line in front of the world. The quiet Marine was now the lead witness in a trial that would define his legacy and expose a hidden economy of exclusion. The courtroom was packed. On one side sat Marcus Thorne, David Chen, and Sophia Reyes, their tables stacked with binders of evidence. On the other, Jason Miller, his lawyer Carson Holt, and a new stone-faced addition, a lawyer representing Echelon Hospitality. The consultant firm had been forced to join the suit to protect the playbook. The judge called for order. The trial to determine the truth and the future of the vault began. Sophia Reyes laid out the case with surgical precision. She presented the VIP placard receipt. She displayed Mike Riker's hidden log on screens for the jury, highlighting the coded language. She called Chloe, the IT manager, who explained how the data correlated with revenue spikes. Then she called Leo, the bartender. His testimony about complaining to Jason and being silenced was simple, devastating, and human. Carson Holt's defense was aggressive. He attacked Marcus's character, painting him as an inattentive owner. He tried to dismiss the log as a security guard's personal notes, but his strategy unraveled when Sophia called her star witness, Marcus himself. On the stand, Marcus was calm, direct, and formidable. He spoke about founding the club as a community space. He detailed the written non-discrimination policy. And then, Sophia presented the text messages mentioning the playbook. She asked, "Mr. Thorne, did you ever authorize the use of a business model called the playbook at your establishment?" "No," Marcus said. "I had never heard of it until we discovered these messages." "Can you read the stated goal of the playbook, as described in Echelon Hospitality's own marketing materials, which we entered into evidence earlier?" Marcus took the document. He read aloud, his voice clear in the silent room. To optimize venue profitability through demographic targeting and the strategic management of customer composition to enhance perceived exclusivity and per capita spend. He looked at the jury. They're describing discrimination as a business strategy. Carson Holt objected, but the point was made. The jury had seen the blueprint. Then came the cross-examination. Holt tried to provoke Marcus to get the volatile reaction Jason's lawsuit had alleged. He asked about Marcus's military service, implying a tendency toward aggression. Marcus didn't rise to it. He explained with a veteran's steadiness that his training was about discipline, integrity, and protecting people, principles he tried to build into his business. The turning point came when Sophia called an unexpected witness, a former Echelon Hospitality consultant named Daniel, who had left the firm over ethical concerns. Under a grant of immunity, he described the playbook in chilling detail, how it used A/B testing to see which exclusionary tactics drove the highest spend, how it advised clients on crafting plausibly deniable dress codes. He confirmed Jason Miller was a client, and that the vault's data was used as a successful case study in internal meetings. Echelon's lawyer objected furiously, but the dam had burst. The scandal was no longer about one club or one manager. It was about a systemic rot. The jury deliberated for less than a day. The verdicts were sweeping. They found Jason Miller liable for fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. They found Mike Riker liable for battery and discrimination. Most significantly, they found Echelon Hospitality liable for conspiracy and negligent supervision, establishing that they had provided the tools for illegal discrimination. The judge awarded Marcus substantial damages for reputational harm and legal costs, but more importantly, she issued a sweeping injunction. Echelon Hospitality was ordered to cease distribution of the playbook and similar materials. Jason Miller was barred from working in hospitality management for 5 years, and the vault was placed under a court-monitored consent decree, requiring regular audits of its door policy and staff training for 3 years. Outside the courtroom, Marcus faced the press. He didn't gloat. He said this was about accountability, Not just for me, but for everyone who was turned away. The playbook is closed. Now we write a new one. The fallout was immediate. Echelon Hospitality dissolved within months under a wave of lawsuits from other clubs and patrons. Jason Miller moved out of state. Mike Riker pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor battery charge to avoid a trial. His career in security finished. But for Marcus, the real work was just beginning. He returned to the vault. He fired no one else. Instead, he promoted Chloe to operations manager and Leo to head of customer experience. He implemented a radical new door policy: first come, first served, with a single, clearly posted dress code. He hired a diverse security team, led by a former police sergeant who specialized in de-escalation. He established a community advisory board, giving neighborhood leaders a direct line to management. The club's revenue dipped at first, then stabilized. The clientele became a true reflection of the city. The vibe shifted from exclusive to electric, from curated to authentic. It became known as the club where you went to actually dance, not just be seen. A year later, Marcus stood at the same velvet rope. He wore a simple button-down, but he was unmistakably the owner. He watched as his new head of security, a tall woman named Rivera, welcomed a diverse line with a smile, checking IDs with uniform efficiency. A young black man in a crisp polo approached. Marcus saw a flicker of hesitation in the man's eyes, a memory of past rejections. Rivera scanned his ID, nodded, and unhooked the rope. "Enjoy your night," she said. The man's relieved smile was the final verdict. The vault was finally what he dreamed it could be, a fortress for the community, not against it. As he turned to go inside, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Sophia Reyes. The state legislature, spurred by the publicity of the trial, had just introduced the Fair Access Act, a bill outlawing discriminatory door policies in places of public accommodation and imposing strict liability on owners for the actions of their door staff. They wanted Marcus to testify. The fight at his door was over, but the battle to change the industry had just found its most powerful witness. So what began with a shove at a velvet rope ended with a push for a new law. Marcus Thorne's story is a stark reminder that the velvet rope racism, documented by sociologists, isn't just an academic concept. It's a daily reality at doors across the country, enforced by policies both whispered and written. For every Marcus, armed with ownership papers and a lawyer, there are countless others turned away with only their dignity bruised. The insidious genius of systems like the playbook is their plausibility. A dress code here, a vague guest list there. It creates a fog of deniability that makes legal action nearly impossible. Most people just walk away, which is exactly what the model banks on. Marcus's victory wasn't just in court. It was in the data. By meticulously documenting the pattern, the logs, the receipts, the correlated profits, he transformed subjective experience into undeniable evidence. He proved the discrimination wasn't a series of accidents, but a business plan. And in doing so, he provided a blueprint for fighting back that went beyond any single club. The ripple effects continue. The Fair Access Act, inspired by his case, could shift the legal burden onto club owners to prove their policies aren't discriminatory, a fundamental change in how these battles are fought. Other venues, fearing similar exposure, are quietly revising their door training manuals. The economic incentive is slowly flipping. But the deepest change might be cultural. The vault's success after its reform challenges the industry's oldest myth, that exclusivity based on exclusion is the only path to profit. It turns out, a room filled with people who genuinely want to be there, who feel welcomed, can be just as lucrative and far more sustainable. Marcus Thorne built a club to be a refuge. He found it had become a fortress. His mission became not to tear it down, but to reclaim it, to repurpose its walls to protect the very people they were built to keep out. In the end, the most powerful tool wasn't his Marine training or his legal team. It was his refusal to accept that the way things have always been done is the way they must always be. If you enjoyed this story of one man holding a mirror to an entire industry, be sure to like this video and subscribe. Tomorrow's story is about a quiet librarian who uncovered a fraud scheme hidden in plain sight within her city's public records. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching.